Welcome to the fifth installment of our webinar series from School of Architecture and Design from Communication Design Program. I am Koshapon Jansawang, an architecture student, and today I'm going to be your MC. So today we'll be exploring the fascinating intersection of urban, social, and ecological factors in the creation of visual art. Our speakers will discuss how these factors inspire and shape their work, and how art can be a powerful tool for addressing the complex issues facing our community and the world. We are joined by the three talented artists, with a unique perspective on the role of urban, social, and ecological factors in visual art. Our speakers will share their personal experiences and insights on how these factors influence their work and how they have used art to connect with or inspire with their audiences. Through their art, our speakers seek to raise awareness of critical issues facing our communities to inspire positive change. They are also passionate about fostering collaboration and dialogue between artists, scientists, and community members, recognizing the power of collective action in addressing the challenges of our time. We are thrilled to have such diverse and talented group of artists with us today, and we can't wait to learn more about their work and their insights on the role of urban, social, and ecological factors in visual art. So please join me in giving a warm welcome of our speakers. For our speaker is Assistant Professor Cheksant Gangakate, a Thai-American artist who specializes in mixed media painting and often criticizes environmental issues with a focus on exploring visual language and the intersection of urban, social, and ecological factors. Mr. Cheksant's work challenged our perception of what art can be and what it can do. He is also an instructor in Communication Design program at School of Architecture and Design. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Cheksant Gangakate.
Hi, thank you, Ern. Hi, I'm Cheksant. Yes, so it's nice to be here, and thank you for your introduction. Let's not delay any longer. I'll start the slides to share with you my findings through my 4 years of work through the set of visual exploration. Let me share my screen. Okay. Okay, am I up?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so thank you. Okay, so this set of work, it took me 4 years to complete, and it a little bit over 70 pieces of work. I named this series Maze Economic, journey and process of finding new visual language through action research. So let me walk you through from the beginning of what prompted me to be interested of this series of work. Okay, so several years ago there was news on national TV about eight provinces in Thailand that was heavily depleted and been deforested. And I also take my students to volunteer camps every year, and I personally witness these depleted nature, and it really bothers me. You know, อุตรดิตถ์แม่ฮ่องสอนเพชรบูรณ์น่านตากเชียงใหม่สระแก้ว and Phra. I'm sure there are more, but we went. But these were. I'm focused on these provinces because it was on the news, and these images, when you search Google out these images, these of Chiang Mai and Phra and Nan, all like these kind of images you would get, right? But if you aren't really there in the depth, the heart of the deforestation, you wouldn't be able to see this. So the students would pick the site, and sometimes it would be really deep into the national forest. And I would personally go into the village and discuss to the people, say, why are you doing this? You know, and they're saying that, oh, there's a big corporation that actually comes in and asks us to plant corn. And that's where the word maize come from, because maize is an ancient word for corn. And they're saying that we'll supply you the seed, and in 1 year you can harvest 4 times, because it takes about 3 months for the corn to be ready to harvest. So in one ride, okay, so they'll make about 500 baht per ride. So let's say for these indigenous people, Papakayal or Hmong people, let's say they want to get a new pickup truck, you know. So that means that 1 or 2 rides is not enough. So they want more money. So because and then they start deforesting more and more forest. So, in my personal view, is this: what happens when the ecological system is disrupted? Uh, Everything in the ecological system in the forest, everything is totally random because sometimes the new plants that where it grows, it would grow by the birds, eat somewhere, and then it's dumped somewhere else, and then it becomes the seed for the new plant, or the seed from the trees, maybe it get blows by the wind, or it falls down and then it started the younger generation of plants. So this system would be disrupted by this commercial farming, uh, and it's alarming that it's actually the farthest you could see out where the sky meet the ground is no forest. Everything is being depleted and make their farm corn. So this really bothers me. So I decided to start a set of work with this issue. So the past should tell us where we are heading. The image of this baseball is what I think the audience of my work or many of the visual works need to know. Is like when the artist is trying to throw you a ball, if you don't have the correct glove to catch it, you wouldn't fully understand the message of the visual vocabularies. So let's say we throw the ball and you don't have the glove, then sometimes you hurt your hand, sometimes spill off. So by educating or telling the audience about or decoding the work is like equip the audience with this glove so they can catch them all more understandably. So let's start. So back in the paintings in the old days, in the 15th centuries, Peter Bruegel the Elder, he's one of the first person who actually painted a, a large scene of landscape with a smaller scale of human. Because before this, the landscapes only merely just to fill in the space. And let's say the subject is uh, Christianity, and then the whole subject would be filled with the whole space, and then the sky in the background, the mountain in the background, was only merely serving as elements to fill in the space. But rather, this uh, Bruegel actually focused more on this landscape itself. Comparing to this Wang Hui in 1644, I'm sorry, I dropped a letter. It's now at the Met, and the mentality of the Chinese is totally opposite in the Renaissance, where the Renaissance said man is the center of the universe, while the Chinese, they're painting. You see how realize that human are only like little tiny speck on Earth, and compare with nature. Nature is far much greater. When the Earth kind of moves itself a little bit, we create like a big huge earthquake or tsunami. So you got to respect the nature and the Earth. Come back to the West. John Constable also uh, similar mentality of a smaller human scale with a large landscape. Turner in 1842, I think this is the snowstorm, but I think Turner is one of the father of the abstract expressionism, uh, because he's trying to capture the rage of nature and the rage of the sea. While here, William Dice, you can still see the people in the back, in the foreground. The background is a really vast, and we would depict the greatness of nature. And this movement is called the sublime. John Martin, The Great Days of His Wrath, 1851. So it is also showing that how the nature is uh, applying the wrath unto the human, is also school of sublime landscape. Frederick this also a volcano, and I think this painting was depicted after a landscape in United States, and there's no human at all. It's just purely on landscape, and this is uh, slowly developed from having human in the picture, and eventually no human at all, just focus on the landscape alone. Albert Bierstadt, Yosemite Valley, 1865. And this also no human. It just focused on the beauty of nature. It's still school sublime. And and I'm telling you all this because I think we probably would have seen more, but it was the hype of the Manets in 1863 when this hype shaken up the art world. The uh, the hype of the sublime kind of died out or faded away, kind of overridden the school of sublime landscape. Claude Monet, the haystack, after Manet, and I was wondering, why he actually painted this way. And I was reading an article online. You can also Google about it. He said he has cataract in his eyes, so that's why he painted this way because he couldn't see very well, and he refused to wear glasses. So it's kind of interesting finding through his research of this series that I'm sharing with you now. Van Gogh, The Starry Night, 1889. So we thought that he was crazy, because all the textbooks said he's crazy. But actually, I went in and I searched and I found that actually he was at that night there is a comet passing through. Van Gogh back then he was very interested in science and astrology. So he would spend time at the hospital. He would spend his free time his free time reading about it. So if you look at uh, the comet, it actually wherever it passes, it gives a swirl sight. So this is was published in Harper's Weekly magazine, um, and comparing to the Van Gogh and Monet, I thought that they were pretty much painting what they actually saw. But we compared to Divencorn in 1963, he actually really abstract and simplified the form. So he's using more of his imagination and aesthetic artistic skill rather than what he actually see, right? Uh, so he start uh, uh, divided the space into more of the shapes. Um, and then go back to Turner. This is how abstract this is. I mean, even today it's still up to date, but it's done in 1819. Is a color study of the sea, and a work by Sean Scully. Even he said he works with light, but Lang Lai, and I just love this guy's work. So it's very abstract as well and very simple, and the thought has been the work has been doing a lot of thinking and critical thinking and analysis before you get to this stage. Then, and then I was researching about diving corn, and then before he started his ocean park, he went up on a helicopter visiting in Arizona, and he saw this aerial view. So it changes this quite a big impact for his work, because from what I showed you earlier, now it becomes this. So you can be like he's also looking at it from aerial view. Now another one of my influencer, Marcel Duchamp, done in 1918. This is his last piece of work, and you see on the bottom left there are 3 layer of plywood or some kind of like organic shape. So I also read a lot about about this Duchamp's work with us because Duchamp uses a lot of strings. So what he would do is that he would get up on a ladder and he would drop a piece of string and just purely on element of chance. Just where will it land, how will it land, you just paint it the way how the string shapes. So that's how it comes out, right? That's where the three shapes that come from. And I just love his idea of element of chance. So visual exploration in medium. So how do I apply all this into my work? So I use a lot encaustic paint. It's like wax-based medium paint. So you have to boil the wax, and then you have to mix with paint to the right ratio, and then you apply onto the canvas. And you've got to apply quickly, otherwise the wax would harden because when it gets cold. And I would start with a semiotic of just very simple territorial geographical map. And on the right, just a map of one of those eight provinces that I mentioned earlier. And this on the image on the left is what I Google out. So I'm mixing both. So I'm using the string to outline the shapes of the province, right? So on the bottom right hand corner, you can see kind of little strings, kind of like what protrude out. And at first, I was just doing that as a kind of like semiotic or references of the province. Use the string and just paint it over, and then I would paint it with a kind of a landscape painting, right? And then I would do similar with this. I think it was a research from Prayer or Nan for the image return. But on the left hand, you can see kind of more texture where I apply the encaustic paint. But after a while, I got a little bored from painting these kind of like representational paintings. So this is what more of detail into this encaustic paint. You could carve negative lines to them and very textural. So I start simplifying the painting more, but still I decided to keep the string shapes of the provinces. So it becomes a little bit more abstract. You can still see that it's a landscape. But after a while, there's like sky, mountain. It's like, what else can you do with landscape if you don't like abstract it more? So this is pretty much. I tried. I probably did 30 of these until I felt it was exhausting. I couldn't explore any further, and it got kind of like pretty heavy texture, and what I wrote up here in the land have become abstracted. It's kind of more synthetic form. So I would use strings, encaustic paint, oil paint, and collage on that. So become a little bit more abstract, okay? And even use corn leaves, leaves, real leaves, and and I still not let go of the strings, different colors. And then I thought, what's different between the forest and actually the commercial plan or farm? So I guess I came up with the word orchard. So orchard is that because all the land and farm, if you look from the aerial view, it has to be kind of some kind of rectangular or square edge, right? Otherwise, you have no room because the farmer needs to walk around the crops and keep them fertilized and water them, right? So if you go into like big, heavy and no divided space, and at all, it would make the job more difficult, So I'm starting using the string to time together instead of just using them as a shape of the provinces. So that's where the grid and the shapes of this grid started in this series, and this will carry on to the rest of the series. So I start experimenting with more of the grids, using more texture, including more stuff. So this is a much bigger scale, also using the string, tied string. Let's call it a net, because it looks like net. And you can see that on the right-hand side, you still see a collage of the photocopy collage of the one of the province. And then I started throwing the net, the strings up random. It's whenever it falls, I start like attaching them onto the canvas. And then I would go back to the landscape, but a little bit more abstract. You can still see that is in the bottom, there's like some kind of corn leaves, plants, and you can still see some shape of the string that's formed a shape of the province in the middle of the painting. And this painting is quite much bigger than the rest. They were 150 by 120. And so I continue exploration, drawing on the net, just wherever it's landed, and the bottom image is more corny, like corn plants, and also the image on the left also like images of a corn plant, painted over like a corn playing with the and at the same time, saying things about the greatness of an orchard with corn. So I'm gonna just walk. In my painting, I would never finish in 1 or 2 layers. I would paint over at least 6 to 8 layers, or even sometimes 10 or 15 layers. The reason for this because when you apply on a layer of paint, let's say you have like 8 layer of paint. When the light goes through all this layer of paint, it go literally go through all the pigment, and it stop and on the support, which is the canvas, and then it bounces back to your eyes. So I guess the more layer you have, the richer the color would be. That's why Rembrandt's work is like so rich, because some of his work he would have applied like 500 layers of paint onto some of his work. So I would start off with the image on the left. You can see the strings, and then I would divide up the space. You can see the charcoal marks, divide up the space of how I want to tackle this, and then image on the right is how I more simplify from the space that I have worked with. And all this are done. I don't plan on it. It's only done subconsciously. And then the work will become this on the image on the left, and then the image on the right is how I finish this painting. Okay. And then I experimented with more organic shapes on some part, and then the net on some part. Which again, it would be all like on random chance. But then I started. I didn't on the image on the left. You can see that there's some net, and then there'll be some lines that actually kind of like mimicking the square or the grid, kind of like continuing the grid, because I wasn't happy with how the grid, with how the ropes physically landed aesthetically. So I added the lines. So you can see in some of the elements on the middle here. So experiment with like the opposite kind of geometry with organic. But then again, you can like the image on the right, you can see that there are also corn leaves hidden in, like in between the ropes and the canvas. And so I thought I tried everything. So now I put the net over the whole canvas, and I thought this piece of work is one of my favorite pieces of work. But underneath, there's also the string that also shaped the shape of the province. And then I start realizing that how I work is that I work with binary process. So I start with automatism, and then the structure, another layer. So I would go like organic, not organic, but like automatic system. Okay, so I'm going to show you. Let's see. So this is. So I would just go freely, no plan, whatever my hands takes me. Okay, so so in binary layers, right? Then I start doing like study pieces of space. So the bottom layer is more organic, and then I would do like geometrical forms or lines, connected lines. Uh, on as the top layer, small control. Also a similar idea, but it's organic, like automatism control, and then just add a circular form. This kind of experiment, and then I started thinking because sometimes you kind of like run into a dead end, and uh, and then I start thinking uh, about because I was reading The Imaginary by Jean-Paul Sartre at the time, and then I was thinking the imaginary lines. So I started googling up imaginary lines, and it was it would be explaining about how the visible and invisible of the imaginary lines. For example, like longitude, longitude, or territorial. Let's say if you drive somewhere, you said, "Welcome to Ohio," or "Welcome to Bangkok." There's no line. If there's no sign, this line only exists only on the map. So in real life, there's you. This is totally imaginary, right? Not like in the, let's say, geophysical territorial line. Let's say like Mekong River is the division line from the Thailand and Laos. So that's obvious, right? So I start thinking about imaginary lines. So how the net kind of like attached onto the canvas, and there are the end of the string, because you have to have the end of the string, like otherwise because when you tie them, you would have to leave the end hanging. So I would just have an idea of playing. What if I just continue this line of the direction of this string, how it's going? I just paint over it. So it added an element of lines on into the work, which I kind of like. So I carry on with these for a while, and the placement of net are now become a little bit more organized. Is now is I plan now. It's okay. I'm gonna put an up on top half, and the bottom half I'm gonna play with these imaginary lines, and the work get more and more complex. And this piece is quite big. This is 150 by 120, but there's still strings underneath the net that's actually form the territorial uh, provinces. Imaginary lines. So actually, these lines, I don't decide where it goes. The process dictates how it goes. I don't dictate the work. The work dictates me, right? It leads me. I eventually. So it's very process based. Okay, so I start switching the medium. I guess I ran out of money to buy canvas because so so I started to switch to work on paper. So I started working with gouache and watercolor and ink. So this is just playing with dividing up the space, from my work before on canvas. So trying to carry on the same method of the organic and then control organic, but playing experimenting with the medium, with the broken up the space and the bottom layer, and then the top layer, which is just kind of randomly choose the lines. So then I start thinking, how can I actually employ the string onto the paper, because the paper is not hard enough for to apply the net. All right. So what? Oh, let me go back. So what I did was that I stretched the tie rope and the net onto an empty frame of canvas, and I start putting my brush go through them. So now I'm just tracing over. So the net, each net becomes a grid. So the grids kind of like dictate of how the shape of the how the pencil is or the ink or the brush is going to move. So therefore, it forms all these grids. And as you can see here, I went on a few layers. So again, the process dictate the work. Then I start forming the grid. Similar method here, using playing with different colors. What if the image on the left is like, what if the lines were thicker? Start using more like a brush rather than just a marker. Then the string returned, because then after I switched the medium from canvas onto the paper, and then I switched back to canvas, and then I decided, instead of using small grid shapes, then I start looking at it as a micro. So now it's like cropping into the grid, right? So now it's like you're viewing like 4 grids, but it's only dissect in the middle here. So, and again, I still work with a binary. You can see that the blue and the yellow are now, they're like more of the like organic, and the kind of like maple yellows is more of the control lines. Same idea, the grid being looking at much closer at individual grid rather than just a whole bunch of grid on the land. Then I start using the ropes, playing instead of just grid. It becomes more of a play. It becomes like line, So use the rope now as line, as composition, rather than just bounding to just the grid. Then there's also lines. I mean, the ropes also act as line, divided into little sections, but then also is play with the composition that I got from the experimentation of from the work on paper. Now I'm applying onto the canvas with the strings. And this is one of the only piece I think that doesn't have any string on them. I start using this piece is also quite big. It's 150 by 120, and piece of work has no string, but so I'm kind of working like I would be working on paper, but now on canvas. Then I was teaching drawing class, and then I was putting together a lecture, and then there's this an old print by Dürer, right? How he actually was trying to draw perspective. So by using looking through the grid to make the ratio much more accurate. So I noticed that the image on the right, there's a grid. It's actually sitting between him and the model. So the word grid kind of I should be able to do something with this, So I started using. Sorry, let me go back. So I was thinking, what if I trying to imagine the trajectory of his eyesight, where he was looking. It would be only one point at a time, so it would be only like one straight line, right? So the imaginary of lines, and then I would try to materialize the trajectory of the eyes, but instead adapting. So now I attach a longer stick onto the brush, and then I create a bigger grid. So now the brush actually moving with the boundary of the grid. So now I'm switching back onto paper. I think this is on A1, and you can see like in the background is divided up the space more. I guess a little bit organic, but it's not automism. But the ink, the black ink, is actually sometimes you just let the ink kind of like drips, let the medium does its own thing. Then this also applying the same method. We're using the grid and the naturalizer trajectory to create these circular shapes on this canvas. Okay. So then I started realizing that if I couldn't start in control drawings, right? So I start doing like what I call meditation drawings, and these drawings are quite big. They're like 150 by 50. Okay, so I would try to meditate and just control but each tiny lines, kind of like a crosshatch, right? But if you kind of, I didn't do a close up shot, but whenever I lose my concentration, the lines would kind of like becomes uh, kind of wiggle, right? So and then once you realize, okay, oh, I'm losing my focus, so you stop. I would stop a little bit, and then would just continue on and gather my focus again. Then that was kind of like the pretty much the sorry, I think it's just noise distraction. Okay, so that was like pretty much the last set of work that was done in the series. Then I'm starting this new set of work called deep sea mining. So many rich mineral embedded in the bottom of the sea, and no one can do anything because it's international open waters, so no one can claim. So what they're doing is that they're going to go down to the depth of the ocean and start mining lithium, manganese, nickel, cobalt to do and these minerals are essential for make lithium batteries, you know, for our electronic cars and handphone and all that. So I don't see any bright future in that at all, you know, for the nature, and not even to mention that it's actually the home to many undiscovered marine species. So we are pretty much destroying uh, the world that we are actually living in by doing this. So many countries just kind of banning this. Uh, anyway, so with this inspiration of deep sea mining, and when you think of deep sea, you think of depth. So I start doing this work on paper, how I start trying to focus. It's, I guess, continuing from meditation drawing when I start doing lines, straight lines. For SoA+D, it's just trying to focus on each line that I go down, right? And on the right, just very geometric shape, kind of contrast between the two. And then I would get into more organic shapes in the background, and then just one single line, just showing the depth of sea. Okay, so that's pretty much where I'm at now. I'm working on the second set of work as deep sea mining. So let's see, so this I'm done. So how do I stop sharing? You mute. You mute.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cheksant. Can you hear me already? Okay,
Yes.
thank you for your insightful and inspiring talk. Your work in investigating the visual language through mixed media and painting, while also addressing critical environmental issues, is truly impressive. And we will return to you during the Q&A session. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we will move to our second speaker, Mr. Eiji Sumi. Mr. Eiji Sumi, a Japanese artist based in Bangkok, whose mixed media works explore the intersection of art, science, and social issues. Through his art, Mr. Eiji challenges our perception of the world around us, using material and techniques from a variety of disciplines to engage both mind and senses. His work is seeking to create connections between art and broader issues of our time. We're excited to hear more about Mr. Eiji's unique approach to art and how he incorporates urban, social, and ecological factors into his work. So please welcome Mr. Eiji Sumi.
Hello, thank you very much for your introduction, and I'm very happy to be here. Okay, so let me speak up my screen. Okay, today let me start to talk about my practice with art and science. Today I will talk about a little bit about art and phenomena in science. I have been actually working. I've started working with the light quite a while ago, and naturally, uh, when I start to research about lighting, it kind of like getting into the phenomena of the light. So this is actually the first photograph that was have ever taken, but it was actually the form of particle and wave together. So naturally, I have started interested in like kind of like very small matters of the phenomena of the universe and the world, how we are, how world is consist of. And back in the days, George Sara used to paint in pointillism, and naturally he painted in the light, painted light with the dot of particle and a point. And coincidentally, the John Cheksant today was showing this Starry Night Van Gogh painting, but also this one was also painted in a kind of like wave format in of the light. So Impressionism time, somehow artists figuring out some of the scientific matters strangely. And that kind of like inspired me to decide to work on a deep down into the particle, and then like what kind of like artwork in contemporary matter we can generate artwork now. So this is the kind of like a response that I have done with this installation was actually built physically, so it was actually done outside. And this one is a highly reflective particle was floating in the air. And I'm using this robotic fan system, lighting system, to create a different look of the lighting. But what I was trying to express in a like mimic was a large hadron, so-called large hadron collider. So this was kind of like my experimental invitation to visualize how the particle, which is normally is invisible to our eyes, but how can we visualize? So we are talking about and I made this work called tidal quark. Quark is a type of elementary particle that actually the consists of matters, and it's really so I made actually title from it, and maybe what I was trying to do was like imitating this large hadron collider, how particle get collide each other, and this large hadron collider is basically trying to find quantum level particle and try to find the new matters in our science field. So this is the Large Hadron Collider. I think it's located in Switzerland, and the collision happens with those magnetic force and the quantum level collision. Because it hits, they find something new matters. So that's how actually we found also the quark. So that's how I named this title. Since this exhibition lasted around 6 months in the Science Museum in Singapore, so I had to figure out how to sustain this particle floating around 6 months straight. So I have kind of like decided to use these different technique, and so I got inspired from this like cleaner robot. So basically, I generated this kind of fan wave robot that constantly recycle this the particle that we are feeding in. Otherwise, it's going to be too much particle inside the glass containers. And also, this is actually the food powder feeding processor. But I also made this kind of it's actually not this one, but this is actually the food industry one. But we created a different kind of a powder feeding system, and the combination of this way I generated this 6 months length installation. So I'm also very interested in something invisible, which is I'm talking about today, phenomena. So aerodynamics, the wind basically is normally we cannot see in our eyes. The wind, we can feel it, but we don't really see it. So this is also one of my experiments to see how we can visualize something we don't see in the nature. And the second work was also I was trying to get inspired by a different kind of a painter after the Impressionism. So this is Leonardo da Vinci's the water turbulence drawing. And this time I was trying to use the water and try to generate a spin quality and using this highly reflective powder again to bring it up and then adding the lights on to visualize the spin effect and the phenomena. And spin is one of the type of the moment like the phenomena which happening in a quantum levels and also gravity would bring our world spin pretty much everything from sun to planet to so many things. It's a gravitational force let object spin. So that spin was also the phenomena that I was interested to kind of like work with. So this was a kind of like a result that I have made. So using the magnet or custom-made magnetic stirrer, because normally like scientific magnetic stirrer costs around, I guess, 6,000 bahts or something, but it's very small. But what I wanted to generate was much bigger power and create a bigger spin of the turbulence. So I generated it using the bigger force of the voltage computer fans and generating this information. And the result was quite mesmerizing to me. I haven't expected that those spin was will come out as universe look as like it becomes very cosmology like universe type of the look to it, and eventually after this work I later find out that how black hole create a kind of like a jet. Black hole just doesn't suck into the object but also release the matters out in the universe, and it is believed that the black hole actually is the one that distributing all the different matters in the universe. So later on, I was kind of quite fascinated with this technique of the spinning and the meaning of it. So it's sometimes like I make some work just from my obsession, but later I found different meaning. That was actually the quite important part of artwork making for me to find out what that means. Okay, so the second one was a wave that as we have started with the photograph of the particle of the light. Wave is another key element of our phenomena in the physics. So naturally, I wanted to try to generate some kind of different kind of artworks. But I've been kind of struggling working with the waters. But this work, while I was working on this project, COVID hit. So we were forced to stay in our home environment. Originally, I was looking to make this installation in tangible installation format, but I still haven't made this work realized tangibly. But I had found out something different with this project. When I was working on this, the wave, naturally, I was interested in through the research. Naturally, I start to get into the kind of Zen garden because Zen garden is something that there's a natural wave of stones. It's called the Kare-sansui in Japan. So somehow this wave, phenomena of a wave, and also meditative quality of the wave, I was quite interested. And then also the time of the COVID that was really questioning our human, that what is the meaning for us, and what is the space. We couldn't go out, and Zen Garden, I loved visiting Kyoto and Zen Garden, but of course I couldn't visit, and how I can find the way to visit Zen Garden. So although my starting point was kind of like a universe and light and things, but I ended up coming into the more meditation context in this work. Technically, I was fascinated of the side plane wave, which is invisible in the nature. So basically, I was creating a mechanism of wave generator in a computer simulation on a physics engine, and then I generated these works. Also, this work was inspired by the Kyoto's Daisen in Zen Garden. Basically, this Zen Garden is starting from the top of the river and going to the medium creek and getting the lower creek, and finally it's going to the sea. And the sea represent universe in Shinto belief and sculpture. So that was quite matching with one of my interests toward the universe, and also the meditative quality of the work. So I ended up putting a sleeking sound installation, which is a cylindric one at the end. That is it's a sound generating installation, like the ancient Shinto traditional technique of the using a kind of like a ceramic tank that generate the ceramic kind of like, yeah, I would say tank that generate this drip of the water sound installation. So that was kind of like the poet that I was inspired by it. And this one don't have a sound, but this was my simulation, 3D simulation. And also, when I want to realize, I want to put the light kind of like sensor that follows the certain amplitude of the wave, for example, so that light follow water. That was the kind of concept. The finding of this project was that although I was actually starting to create some kind of like a simulation to find the design of this actual work before I make, I found out that this is a more solution in a way that it's the Zen Garden, democratizing the digital Zen Garden. In other words, everybody can kind of like digitally access from everywhere, instead of you're going to traditional town like a Kyoto. So it was a more response from my COVID era work that I tried to create a meditative quality space through the wave in COVID. Okay, so the last one, the main thing that the three, when I started to work on a particle, I already knew that I will work on the gravity as well. So for me, particle, wave, and gravity is a kind of the set of the work that I wanted to research and pursue. Although my work is not really like, like trajectory is kind of like going in a playful way, social way, and different kind of the element. But at least I was trying to generate something related to or with those phenomena. So this work was the seesaw inspired work, because this is the physics of the gravity, which kind of create this up and down game. So I started to create a large scale installation with this gravity works. But this time, this work was more so for kind of like a political, social issue that I wanted to take care. Back in the days, there was a time that there's no election for country of Thailand, and also Trump and Hillary Clinton was fighting against with the election, and also Macron and this French right-wing person. Sorry, the name didn't pop up from me from top of my head, but there was a lot of conflict between left wing and the right wing in the world, and also the country of Thailand lost sort of like the system of the election back in the days. So that was kind of like was shocking news for me, and it was bothering me enough to start to work on some new works about this gravitational works. So this work is you can get on around 30 people can get on in the one installation, and one side of the system works this way because the reason that I made it in a round shape is because one side of the edge, the one person on the edge will balance equally with 11 to 10 people, 10 to 11 people in the middle. So basically, I just didn't want to make the world very fair world. I wanted it to be a bit cynical, but also realistic, the way that how the world composed. So what I try to do in this work is like there's always some powerful people that exist in this world. Some are having a more power, or some are having more money, or some was born unprivileged, and so on. So basically, this world is not equally fair to begin with. So I wanted to describe that in this small kind of like system of this seesaw system. So this is a kind of like my this seesaw depicts the small world of each country. So on the right side, there's the seat, couple seat can get on, and on the left side is the same thing, and it's equals. But also there was a standing area, which I generated for fun as well, but also this is kind of like swing water type area that those people are always can move either way, but also other seated area is those waters are kind of like solid water that doesn't move, for example. So I was that was the beginning of this installation, the concept. So, and also I work with light. So I had to put the kind of tilt sensor in it, so the light react with the colors. And if you want to change the color, you have to go to the other side to change the color. So I was actually also playing with the kind of political colors of each of the countries and so on. So normally in the politics, they have different colors. So I kind of incorporated this type of thing as well too. But as a response, at the end of the day, I was most bothered for me was this division of the two society. Nowadays, you know, each week with the holidays, people no longer don't want to talk to the people who is different, having a different opinion. And I come from, or where I grew up, or maybe the time that I grew up, it was okay to have different opinions. Even though we are friends and we have different opinions, we can still negotiate, we can still discuss, we can still argue, but we can still keep this relationship. But nowadays, in the world, it doesn't exist those things. If you have a different opinion, you have to divide into the world. That was really the reason that I made this work to not to propose an antithese for this kind of a structure of the society, current society. Okay. Okay, so this is actually the in the Singapore. It was I Singapore, and it was shown in the publicly. And one thing I found the difference between showing in this kind of public area in urban area and the kind of a closed gallery area was the people who participate in this kind of installation. They were not really art savvy kind of people, but it was really interesting for me in a way that all the people who participate gave a comment saying, "Thank you very much for making this artwork." You know, that was a really like a strange feeling in a way that normally like the people give some compliment on the artwork to the people, but I never had a really like was appreciated. Oh, thank you very much for making this artwork. That was really quite interesting phenomena that I experienced with the people through this public artwork in an urban setting. And also, this work, a lot of time, my goal was to change it to the other side, to go swing back and forth. That was my intention of making. But in reality, a lot of people try to cooperate each other to make the balance of the world. So in the Singapore, a lot of times, most of the time, actually, all those strangers who got on the installation, 20 to 30 people, they cooperate each other, try to get the balance, the world balanced. So that was a quite interesting phenomena that I found in this project. But that was again I was working on the gravity basis. Okay. Okay, so maybe this is the last two works that I want to introduce. This is a William Forsyth's artwork with choreographic object. Basically, there's a fabric of the kind of flag, and robotic precision try to create a choreographic of this beautiful installation. I was very inspired about this work, and I want to generate kind of tribute to his work, and how I was thinking like, okay, maybe is there any new work that I can generate tributing his work with interest of my gravity phenomena. So this work was done recently. It's actually, this is my newest work. During the COVID time, actually, I was working a lot about this AD project, including the waiver project. So this is the second work that I have generated digitally during and after the COVID. So this work is about gravity. I actually tried to choreograph these metallic fabric in the 3D space, choreographed only by microgravity. So what I mean the microgravity is, normally, gravity is if we have one planet, we have one gravitational force that's coming down, pressure down to the earth. But in my imagination, in the future of the humankind, we'll be able to manage to control gravity. Another one, we may be able to create small gravity in any kind of spaces, or even like assign gravity in each of the project, which we can do it in 3D spaces right now. So my theory is that why not we cannot make any of the things which happening in the digital 3D spaces, maybe probably will be able to do something in the future. Because gravity is something that the human is always fighting against, and the mobile car, train, airplane, all of them are anti-gravity force vehicles, and we always find some new solution. Now we have a drone. We didn't imagine that in 30 years ago how drone could be existed, but now we can easily anything can be easily fly by drone. So in the future, in my imagination, we are able to control microgravity. So this is a work that I have generated in the future, in the universe, somewhere on Earth, Mars, wherever the spaces we can generate non-gravitational space or the gravitational assignment of the microgravity object. So this project that was really interesting, because when I was when I started making on this project, I didn't realize, or I didn't think about the spin phenomena of the spin. But when I generated assign each of this fabric, metal fabric, basically right now what you see is 5 different gravity choreographed the location and also parameter of the strength of the gravity. So that's all I'm doing in this animation. I'm not actually spinning anything. I'm just changing the location of the gravitational location and also the strength only. And then this is how things happen. Everything is spinning and rotating. And of course, after I see this one, I said myself, of course, because that's why planet Earth is spinning, moon is spinning, everything is spinning in this world. So that was, if that's scientist of data, of course, but I didn't realize this will happen when I was making things. So I try kind of like a collide these objects of using a gravity. Now I change the value of the gravity, and now it's more rather floating because the gravity force is a little bit smaller than before of each of the assignments. So that was a kind of like my new work, and I guess my new obsession in the digital spaces and artwork. So, and those collisions, it's quite interesting to my eyes. And these curves of the when the the gravitational kind of like curves, the object curves was also Einstein's lens gravity effect. So I didn't realize that that will also happen, but I could find that in those digital artworks. Okay, so I think this almost the time is up. So I will make maybe the one last work that I show. This is actually not about phenomena of wave and those scientific phenomena of particle wave and gravity, but this is just a installation work that I have also done during COVID. This was a remote work that I have generated in China. I have actually generated the cocoon installation back in days in Jim Thompson Art Farm for the first time. But the curator from China, his name is Nikun from Chongqing. When COVID started, very beginning of the COVID, we didn't realize that how bad the COVID going to be. But the curator Nikon contacted me. Hi, don't you want to make the cocoon for the installation during the COVID time? Actually, I didn't realize again that the COVID becomes that severe that time. But also back in the days already, we are not be able to travel to China, of course. But it was quite interesting the way that he had a lot of the Nikon had a kind of vision that we are going to stay in cocoon kind of places for long time during the COVID. So we could spend time in rejuvenate ourselves inside a cocoon before we reborn to something else. So the reason that I'm showing this work is because during the time of the COVID, I have generated those two 3D digital artworks, and I'm getting more and more into this digital artworks, and that was happening during this COVID time, and that was my little bit my response to this cocoon time in the COVID. So maybe I wanted to share the process of how each of the artwork kind of like feeded each other. Okay, I think that's it for my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Eiji, for sharing your inspiration mixed media and the works that explore the intersection of art, science, and social issues. Your work in challenging our perceptions of the world around us and exploring the impact of urban, social, and ecological factors on our daily life was very impressive, and we will return to you during the Q&A session. Thank you. And now comes to our final speaker, Mr. Dusadee Nubtrakul, a talented artist who creates small sculptures and drawings. He is currently collaborating with his 4-year-old son to create a 2-person band, pushing the boundary of his art and inspiring the next generation of artists. We can't wait to hear more from Mr. Dusadee's creative process and insights on the role of urban, social, and ecological factors in visual art. So please join me to welcome Mr. Dusadee Nubtrakul ค่ะ
Hi, สวัสดีครับ So I guess I'll just go into my presentation and I'll zoom through. I have a lot of stuff to show you guys, so I'll do that as of now. Let's see if I
โอเค
can.
ค่ะ
Okay. All right. Let's see. Let's do this one first. Okay. You can see it, and you can
Yes,
see this.
ค่ะ
Okay, good. So I'll just zoom through. Well, first thing first, I'll just talk about the Thai artists that are really really inspiring to me, and on the second section, I'll talk about a little bit about my teachers, and then after that, I'll just show you guys what I've been working on, and it shouldn't take that long. And so I'll just go right now. So this one, the first one is, of course, like, if you're in Thailand and if you're a Thai contemporary artist, you have to know this guy. His name is Rukrit Thiravanit, and it's like so inspiring in a sense that, he made me think of art differently in terms of how can, eating and food be served in a gallery be called art. And so, it changed that trajectories of what's possible. And let's see if I can get this to do the full screen. Okay, I just found it. All right, so that's Rukrit Thiravanit. This one is called Untitled Free. So, and of course, it's about all this interactions while people eating, talking, in the space, and it's art. And another person is Apichat Pongwirasetthakul. Apichat Pong, and of course, it's always kind of like the sound. I mean, when you watch his film, it's always about the sound that he recorded from the actual scene, of which it's impossible to really recreate. And Nawin Rawanchaikun, and then you have Udom Sakritsanamit. That's his painting. Really, really amazing. I usually, that's what I do. I'm a fan of painting. I went to school for painting, and if I have I usually look up painting every day on internet, just to feel good, about life, and I enjoy looking at painting. And another person is Miti Ernkritiya. Lately, this is from his last series where he took pictures of 7-Eleven from around the country. There you go. 7-Eleven. How is 7-Eleven be a part of our lives? Everywhere. And another person is Aaron Toole. He was in the Navy, I believe. No, he was in the Marine, and then he went to war, and then he came back, and somehow the U.S. government didn't have enough, perhaps like funding to treat the soldiers who came back and had to recover from a war. And so he got together with friends, and for his own practice, he would make cups, and each cup would have like an image, or more images of wars from human history, and then he would fire these cups, and then he would give out these cups for free. And he's been giving out at least 20,000 cups in his entire career for free. So that's pretty cool. Aaron Toole. That's the image of his cup. Very nice. And of course, like each one is different. Like none of the cup, is the same. And this is my teacher too. This is Richard Shaw. And I got to study with him when I was when I went to school for my MFA at UC Berkeley. And I was lucky that because he was teaching for in his last semester, and I got to take a class with him, and somehow he got me to work with clay until this day. So that was about 10-12 years ago when I went to school for my master. That's Richard Shaw.
The slide is not moving.
It's not moving at all. From where? Is it moving?
From the beginning, the first picture.
Really? It's still like stuck in the. Okay, cool. Let's see how there's something wrong with it then. Okay, so do you see it right now? Is it moving right now?
Yes, yes.
It's moving. So I have to do this. Then okay, so I'll do this. Apishat Pong
Okay.
Nawin Udom Sak Mite. That's Aaron Tool. That's his cups, Richard Shaw, and that's Charles Ray. I got to study with Charles Ray, where this piece is so amazing. It's called Hinoki, and the story had it that he found this giant redwood log in the middle of the field, and he stole it, and he cut them into small sections, and he casted them into resin, and then he sent all those like 5,000 pieces of resins to master wood carvers in Japan to carve it back into wood again, and shipped it back into the into the States. So I got to study with him. Another person was Anthony Seeker. Anthony Seeker was an ethnomusicology professor at UCLA, and I got to study with him. And so Tony did his thesis in the rainforest of Brazil, where he studied and he recorded the music of the SoA people. And of course, Tony was was there for a few years, and he took his family there as well. And and the SoA people, what's amazing about them is that music means everything to them. And of course, like in the rainforest, there's no sense of music as we know it, where there's no money in it. And so music is really, really something that's that really means something. I'm not saying that music that we have here doesn't mean something, but it's definitely different when there's no money involved. So that's Tony, that's Charles Ray, that Tim, the white guy among the the SoA, and then another person is Aiwa Ong, who wrote this many amazing books. But I got to work with her, where I got to work with her book, where I copied sections of her books. The one that it's called Buddha is Hiding, and it's about the Cambodian refugee, like post-Vietnam War, escaping the Pol Pot regime and resettled in the refugee camp in Thailand, and then resettled again in Oakland and in around San Francisco area. So I copied a section of the book. Like the land of no more hope. And then the last chapter is Asian immigrants as the new Westerners. Pretty intense. So, and then, and I stopped making the tracing because it was really, really hurtful for my hand. And at the time, my brother died too. So I moved my practice toward something a lot lighter that would make me, happy. And so, and of course, and and my brother was at one point in his life, when we went to this junior college, he would go and take a ceramic class, and he would come home with this like really, really funky looking stuff that he fired there. And so I always thought that he made the coolest stuff. And so he got me into clay. So he passed away, and I got back into clay because clay makes me happy. And this image is of a Venus that's found in Czech Republic. It's roughly about 20,000 years old, right? And so this is what I make. I make right now. Well, I work with a lot of things. I do drawings, and I'm somehow working on a video piece as well. But I do sculpture, and I work with clay. And so this is my work, inspired by, of course, like the Japanese haniwa and all those figurines from around the world, like usually prehistoric. I kind of like do like the idea of like this funkiness, where when you see their hands and then you realize that their hands are like we're like Homo sapien, that we all have hands since like at least like what 300,000 years ago. And of course, like that was only when we moved out of maybe Africa or something. But of course, like, And of course, like when you see hands, you can kind of like see through times of what we could imagine before and what we could, imagine in the future, perhaps. And these are what I made for Singapore Biennale. These are vessels, and it's inspired by Banqiang, potteries, of which they're like one of the oldest sites of archaeological findings here around Southeast Asia, and roughly it is about 3,000 to 4,000 years old. So we've been here for at least that. So I made these guys, and each one, if you can see, there's like this plaque, golden plaque, and each one, is like I would inscribe like some sort of a proposal or something that I really, really want to have in this life, and it has something to do with public policy. Like, for example, I want universal basic income. I want Southeast Asian Clean Soil Management Center. I want Southeast Asia Clean Resources Management Center. I want to divert all labor force to propose healthy ecology. I want Southeast Asia Community Fertilizer Center. I want no bad chemical in food production. I want universal labor rights. I want regenerative agriculture. I want to jail corrupted public officials. I want, us to unite, and because we are the majority. And I want Southeast Asia Clean Air Management Center. I want basic education for biodiversity. I want Southeast Asia from waste to energy to consumption management center. I want universal health and care. I want public participation in urban planning. I want Southeast Asia clean water management. And so each one would have like a plaque like this in front of it, and it would say, this thing that I think we should have. And I had a show with Jim Thompson Art Center. Jim Thompson House a few years ago, where I put several ceramic pieces inside the house, and then I made some bronzes for the garden. And it's kind of cool where that I can make this kind of like this funky looking things to go into like this really tight traditional house, of which were made beautifully. And so if my sculpture can stand there, it can definitely stand anywhere in the world. So I made these guys to go that went inside the house, and then and I did this. This piece is it's called these are drawings of snakes, snakes in toilet. They're pretty cool. I really like them because it is about clay as well, because all these tiles are made out of clay. The toilet's made out of clay, especially in this one. Like you can see it. I'll zoom in like this. As you can see, you have like the tiles, clay. This is clay. Fired, of course, like this is clay, and so I work with clay, but this is like a drawing, but a drawing from like this screen. So it's kind of like this post-internet drawing. It's kind of nice, but like when you look at this like picture, it's kind of cool where you're like you see this bucket and you see this pipe, like this faucet, but it's like why and why is it like the bucket's not here? And you see this step right here, and you're like, wow, it's amazing where you have to put this thing here and then move it up because it's closer. You can wash your butt like with this water, and like you're like, and then once you use all the water out, you have to like put this bucket down again and then turn on the faucet and fill it up and then lift it up again while you're like pooping. It's kind of weird. Anyhow, and this I got to show at Fukuoka Art Museum that happened a few months ago. Oops, that's it. Oops. Let's see. All right, snakes from toilet. Oops. Not sure, one more time. Snakes from toilet, from toilet, from toilet. And then I made I made a book called Gecko from the Cities. And so there are like a picture of geckos around my house. They're pretty cool. And I had a show once where I show a print and ceramic figurines. So like a picture of gecko, like really, really nicely printed, and a clay piece. And they went together, kind of cool, because like and it's kind of rare to witness, an artist that used this combination of medium, I guess, with clay and then photography in the same spot. But I want to, this is what I do. I want to use clay, I want to use photography, I want to use sound, I want to use like moving images, I want to do painting and drawings as well. And hopefully I can, anyhow, this is one of my proudest achievements where I make book. This one is called Grandma, I Want a Penis, and it's from a true story of my wife growing up wanting to have a penis because she was like the middle child, growing up with like two, like a older brother and younger brother, and they always like, peeing, like, there's like this game when they pee together and they would use the pee as swords, like, and they would do like sword fighting with the pee. And my wife would want like to engage in that game so much that she asked her grandma to buy her a penis from the market. Anyhow, I'm somewhat really proud to say that this publication is sold out, and we only printed 300 copies, I think, and it took us like 4 years to sell them all, but we did it. So that's my boy. And okay, and so with this book, our family made drawings together. Like my wife contributed 1 drawing, my boy did 5 drawings, and my friend's son Max made 3 drawings, if I remember correctly, and then the rest I did. And so there are collections of drawings from 4 people: my wife, my boy, myself, and then my friend's son, who was 5 years old at the time. So that's my boy when he was like 1.5 or something. His name is Bryn, and these are his drawings in the book. These are my drawings in the book, and it's about asking the grandma to buy the penis from the market, and the grandma said yes, and of course she would come home every week, and then my wife would wait for the penis, and the grandma would lie like, hey, there's no penis at the market today, like the stall was not there. And I'll skip this story. This is a cave in Czech Republic where my son was born. Around the time, we went to Czech Republic, and my son was like conceived in Czech Republic, and we went to this cave. It was pretty cool. Anyhow, I'll tell you the story about this cave. We were sitting outside. We went inside this cave. It's like the second longest cave in Czech Republic, and we went with this professor Pavlik to look at this red worms, the introduction of red worms that are changing the ecology of the cave. So anyhow, we went in with like cave professionals, and that was before Mupa happened case. If you guys know about Mupa, then if that happened before, if Mupa happened before, we probably didn't go in. But anyhow, my wife was sitting in front of the cave, and that was when it was the last time she talked to her grandmother before the grandmother passed away. So this is the story, like Grandma, I Want a Penis. So it is about asking the grandma for the penis. So that's me, and then my wife, and then the Professor Pavlik, and then Elise, and then the cave professional, like explorer. So we went inside the cave. It's kind of cool. And then there's that's Max drawing of my wife up there on a tree crying, like wanting attention from the family, and she thought that someone would come out and get her, ask her to come down, but no one came out, to stop her from crying. So she had to stop crying and climb down the tree herself when she was young. And this was a true story. And that's my wife drawing, the only drawing that she contributed. So that's her on top left, and she's like she would wait in front of the gate in her house, and that's her like by the gate with the hole, and she would peek to see if grandma would come with the penis and stuff. So anyhow, so that's the story. And then during lockdown, during COVID lockdown, I started taking pictures of insects, like with my boy. So luckily, at the time we got to stay in this house with the small garden, but in the middle of the city. So I discovered like hundreds different species in the small garden in the middle of Bangkok alone. like insects. It's mind-boggling, and I call this series "Universe in a Garden." That's my exhibition last year that happened. Right? Yeah, it happened last year at Bangkok City Gallery, where I made like traffic cones like that in brass. And I made more clay sculptures of figures dreaming, like sleeping and dreaming. And that's a femur with and I'll zoom in a little bit too. And I made a lot of gecko poops, like gecko poops, butขี้จิ้งจก like I made a lot of them in clay. They're kind of nice, and they're like everywhere in my sculptures. They're like on the cup, like these three cups. They have like gecko like shit on them. And that's the last slide. That's the UFO hovering like with this beam of light, trying to get something from the earth or sending something into the earth. All right, Kap. My lecture is over, so I will stop sharing. Okay, Kap.
Okay.
So
Thank you,
went really
Mr.
fast.
Dusadee.
Okay, Kap.
Okay. For your engaging and inspiring talk, your unique and creative approach of making small sculptures and drawings, and your collaboration with your 4-year-old son have given us new appreciation for power of art to inspire and connect with people. We appreciate your time and effort in sharing your experiences, and we look forward to seeing you for your work in the future. And thank you again. And we will move to the Q&A session, where you and the audiences have the opportunity to ask the speakers. And we already got some Q&A already. So the first one will be okay. Let's move to our Q&A question. The first one will be, do you have any exhibitions coming up? May I ask? Oh, do you have any exhibition coming up? May I ask Mr. Cheksant first?
Okay. I have one show coming up in actually January next year. One in Thailand, like a gallery. I don't know. I mean, I should say the name, Gallery Bar. That's we are having one solo exhibition in January. Possibly there's also the new year. There's some Europe installation exhibition may happen, but I'm not sure yet. But right now it's kind of like I'm making time, sort of like hiding in the cave to make time. So I'm not having much of a touring exhibition right now.
Okay. So the next one will be Mr. Cheksant.
No. No. Not yet.
Okay.
Well, I have actually I have 2 exhibitions happening right now. One is in Bangkok City. It's a group show called Warehouse, and then there's another group show that I am in. It's in Bangkok University Rangsit campus. It's in Southeast Asian Ceramics Museum. So and that exhibition is called Treasure. So I have 2 happening right now, and then I have one coming up in Indonesia. It's a group show as well, but I don't have any solo show like planned for this year at all.
โอเคค่ะ Okay,
I
let's
saw
move
your
to
show
the
in Arante.
Have you seen it?
Yeah, I saw it. It's cool.
It's fun, right? It's good, right? It's like really well put together by Ajahn Nipan. It's definitely worth the drive. Definitely worth the drive. Thank you.
Okay ค่ะ let's move to the second question. May I have the question from Ajahn Okay ค่ะ How do you do to keep yourself motivated and interested in your work? Let's start from Mr. Eiji.
I guess obsession. That if I don't get obsessed long enough, I don't work it. I guess because if it's obsessed enough, I have to do it. So that's how I feel it. Another thing is a deadline. If I have deadline, I have to do it.
Okay, Mr. Cheksant ค่ะ
That's a good question. Sometimes you do get burned out, but I guess it's the artist's curse where you could never stop making art. Eventually, you have to always go back. It's like once you're an artist, eventually. Sometimes I stopped. When I was in doing management for the university for 3 to 4 years, I had no time at all. But then when I stepped down, I resuming back to start creating work again. And I guess what motivates me is usually it's topics that I really hate. Like before this, another set that I did earlier, back probably 20 years, no, in 2009, it's called Unseen Thailand. That was originated from the just advertising by the Thai government. Is that amazing Thailand grand sale? That sentence just bothers me, and I start everything from that one sentence, and I start researching and creating work from that sentence. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Dusadee.
Well, I guess I'm just like Ajahn Chek, and Eiji as well, where we are like artists, and if we don't make art, you go crazy. So it's not even about like what it's what you have to do, or else you go crazy. It's crazy or make art. So I'd rather make art than go crazy. So, yeah. So that's what we do. We make art instead of or else.
Okay ค่ะ
And you love it, you love what you do. It gives you pleasure. It makes you happy, and and pleasure heals pain. And we live in this world full of pain. And you need to do something that gives you pleasure. To heal yourself, and art does that for us. I think, for me and for us, I think. So.
Okay ค่ะ And we have another question. It's the first time for me to see this. Thank you for your presentation. Oh, just a comment from Piano. Okay. And we have the last question also. What do you do to get into your creative zone? Let's start from Mr. Eiji.
Creative zone. I think I'm in the zone most of the time. like when I'm riding a motorbike, or when I'm doing something, I'm thinking, how did it go? And I think like one word, which is I'm very obsessed with the water right now. And for example, water is a pain as a material. You cannot ship it. It's heavy. It's a liquid. It's a painful material to work with, or medium. And I wanted to, I want to get away from that because it's like, it's hard to correct even for the artwork. Nobody wants to collect, for example. or nobody wants to buy, for example. But I get obsessed and I cannot get away from it. So I ended up, okay, I'm gonna do it anyway. So at the end of the day, like Dusadee mentioned, what makes you happy is very important. So I think I have to make myself happy first, so before anything else. So that's how I think, keep thinking. I'm keep thinking in the zone most of the time when I have time, I guess.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Cheksant, please.
Uh, Sometimes when you're out of the zone is when you take too long of a pause. So in order to get in, you need maybe looking at artwork, looking watch through YouTube's of review or other channels now, like contemporary art channel, and sometimes to get yourself into or get myself started from not working and just do small sketches, and then once the momentum start going, and then the momentum will just kind of guide you. That's what I think. Yeah.
Okay. May I have the
Okay.
answer from Mr. Steve?
Yes, for me, I think about making things all the time. That it's a part of my life, but to think is different from thinking is different from making. Like you can think about making something, you can think about that forever, but not make anything, and that could be fine. That's fine as well. But my practice is based on making stuff, and so I have to force myself into making things. And usually I would make I would make 10 sculptures and then maybe one or two would be good. So it's it's always about like making trashes, like shit stuff, like bad stuff, until in the middle of it you find something good, and then you throw away the shitty stuff. And so it's about making it, like forcing yourself, like discipline. You have to, and of course you think about that's you think about making all the time, but thinking is easier than making, I think. Well, it's maybe but yeah, so that's it's about making. It's like forcing yourself to work, to actually spend labor, like sweat and stuff. So that's yeah, that's the zone, is the sweat.
Okay, thank you. And I guess we have one last question. What device do you have for your new generation of future artists who would like to do the project this way? Started with Mr. Ichi.
When I started, because of when I started installation works, normally which required a space, I started guerrilla works basically. I had my friends who owned, luckily who owned the kind of like abandoned spaces. I mean, under construction, was basically my friends was not using that building, for example. So I just made some installation work in there and just take a video documentary, for example. So I, yeah, basically when you want to see something and when you have a vision, you don't have to wait for someone to offer your job or anything. You can just make it any way you want to, and just don't wait. Just do it wherever you can. I think that will lead you to each step you take. Maybe that will take you to another step. So I think you can do it in anywhere. That's my advice.
Thank you for your answer. And Mr. Shiksan, please.
Um, I guess networking is important, but what networking is have to do going to help if you have no work. So even like right now, I have no plan to show, but I have tons of work. Like the past 4 or 5 years, probably produced over like 200 pieces of large and small pieces of work. So if the opportunity comes and for me to show, then I have a lot of work to show. So keep producing, but just keep producing. Yeah, that's it. Keep producing as much as you can.
โอเคค่ะ and the last one Mr. Dusadee ค่ะ
For me, it's always about, like I said before, that it's about making things and thinking about it all the time and not quitting. Like do not quit. Like I've had so many friends where we went to school and like amazing artists just quit because they couldn't reach that idea of success like quick enough. And I think that's like, if you're into art, like I said, if you cannot make art and that makes you go insane, then you have to make it. If the desire is not strong enough, you better leave art alone. I think it's a waste of time. So you do it because you have to do it, and then all my friends, they've worked like 2 jobs just to sustain the practice, and that's what you do, and maybe success is in the making itself, and it takes whatever, who cares? Like, you do it because so don't quit. If you want to do art, just you can do small things, and it's not even have to be like whatever. You can, instead of like breathing is art. So but don't quit. That's my advice. Don't quit too soon. Yeah, just keep
Okay,
making.
thank you for your answer. And another question, when do you know the work is finished on the process of creating it? Started with Mr. Eiji.
Some work instinct, I guess, but sometimes my work also plans. Planning is very important sometimes for me. So I guess when audience experience it, well, when I first experience it, that moment I will know that work is finished.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Cheksant ค่ะ
That's one of the classic questions, because my instructor from when I was in school, he also said this, that you have to know, or how do you know, like when your work is finished? Because sometimes when the work is already reached it's like a peak of its aesthetics, but you still cannot finish what you cannot stop working on it, and eventually sometimes you mess up the work. So you got to know like when it's finished, and that's a kind of could be tough sometimes. Sometimes could be tough, especially with paintings. Uh, I don't have a kind of solid answer. I just have like a sense of how, but you know yourself. Even your gut tell you it's like uh, when it's done. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Dusadee ค่ะ
Well, I guess it took me a while in my own life to realize like when to finish a work, and I guess that's when you know you are an artist, like because you know exactly when, and only you know. And it took time to learn to know by yourself, and it's kind of it's one of those ones where you just know, but sometimes it's like it's a bad no, like sometimes you're lucky, sometimes it's a good, so it depends. Like, but that's one thing about being an artist, is that you have the authority, the freedom to know when something is alive, and I think it's about being it something, I make stuff, so the stuff has to come alive, like it has to have life in it. Once the life goes in, then it's perhaps enough. You don't want, or yeah, it depends on the piece. And you don't get, like I said, like I make like 10 things, and usually like one thing is good, the rest is just stupid crap. So anyhow, but maybe those 9 things are actually better. Like, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I hope I answer that like badly.
Okay. Next question is actually for Mr. Eiji. Mr. Eiji, I think rotational floor art is interesting and can surprisingly require participants' interaction as a team to manipulate the circular floor. Oh. Do your participants have any more surprising interaction from your artworks as well, Mr. Eiji?
Not. I mean, there is some work with the. I don't know what is called. What is the means surprising interaction? Surprising interaction that some participant break the artwork, for example, happened early before, but not like this. The work that I have just introduced. Actually that work has a series, and there's actually two other works that I have in my head and I have in my sketch, but it just didn't realize that those two works. So one is a kind of like rotating, and one is actually going higher on the space. So yeah, so basically the higher one is one person sacrificed to go see one person's higher view, something like that. So I don't want to talk about a happy story. So to be able to see somewhere some view perspective, somebody has to sacrifice, for example. Or another one is like a tiny one, like a rotational one, which is that kids can rotate it, but it does can be 30 people on it and it can rotate around it. So it's like I have it in my head, but it didn't realize it yet.
Okay. Thank you for your answer. And the last question, hopefully, which part of the work do you find hardest in terms of design process, research, production, or post-production? Mr. Iji first.
Maybe you can Cheksant, you can go first.
Okay. So Cheksant can be first.
I think I enjoy doing research. I enjoy doing research to discover new information. Production is also very excitement, a lot very exciting because you're stepping a foot onto the unknown land. So it's kind of getting a rush from that, right? So I think I enjoy the research and the production. But the post production, what do you mean by post production? Like after you finish the work and then you have to find two places to exhibit. I think that's most troublesome because sometimes you got to approach the right people, you got to play the game, or I think if that post production means to find a place to show, I think that's the 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 process that I don't like the most. Okay, by you have to try to approach galleries and please consider my work and but the research and the production is I very much enjoy.
Thank you. And Mr. Dusadee, please answer this question.
The hardest part about, I think it is from, I make small stuff, so the hardest part would be to store them. There's like this exhibition that's happening right now at Bangkok City. It's called Warehouse, and it is about that invisible labor. It's like, you see the object, but like the life behind it. Like, how do you move it? How do you wrap it? How do you transport it? How do you keep it in good shape? I think that's the longevity of the life after the production. That's the hardest part, I think. If that's the question. Yeah, it's the storing it, like taking care of something that's done and to keep it well maintained. I think that's the hardest part.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Ichi?
I guess the beginning of the new project, in the design process or research was, I think, the most hardest for me, because sometimes you think like, okay, I want to do this, and then it doesn't work. So many things just doesn't work, and you have to really it's a kind of like almost in the moment of the fear that is this work actually worth it, or is that just doesn't work? So, but you still have to keep moving to just going for it, even though you may not work it. So that kind of like a part mental process is a little bit difficult, but that's actually the most fun process at the end, after all, maybe.
Okay. Thank you for all of your answers. And we want to take a moment to thank all of our speakers for today, Mr. Cheksant, Mr. Eiji, and Mr. Dusadee, for the insightful and informative answers of all the questions, and the thoughtful response has given even the greater appreciation for the complexity and the depth of the topics we have explored today. Thank you.
Thank you ครับ
Thank you ครับ
So this seminar has now concluded once again. Thank you for all the speakers for your time and expertise, and thank you for our audiences for your participation and engagement. And thank you for everyone to join us for today for this exciting, informative webinar on urban, social, and ecological on visual art. And we hope you gain new insight and inspiration from our speakers and learn about our unique approaches to creating art. We would like to thank to everyone who helped this webinar possible. And lastly, we would like to thank you for joining us and hope to see you for the next webinar. Thank you. Goodbye.